What's up everyone and welcome to this video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the world's oldest known weapon, which happens to be a sword from, I believe, Turkey from around 5,000 years ago. It dates to around 3000 BC. That's incredibly old. I'm not sure how they thought they got this one correct, because they originally thought that the sword was from the medieval period. So there must have been some really inaccurate dating going on, where if you confuse something that's 5,000 years old and think it's only maybe 1,000 years old. I'm not really sure how that came about. But let's go and take a look at this article and let's see what they have to say. World's oldest surviving sword, 5,000-year-old Anatolian weapon, is discovered in the Armenian monastery of Venice after being mislabeled as medieval. So from reading the article, I believe it states that a PhD student was looking at it and she was kind of like, this, you know what? I think this might be a little bit older than medieval. And good for her for figuring this out, because who knows how long it would have taken them to realize this. One of the oldest swords in the world was mislabeled in a museum on the St. Lazarus Island, Venice. Yeah, this article, my bad for pausing like that, but I think some of this writing is a little off. It's around 5,000 years old according to a new study. Yeah, okay. The ultra-rare sword, which doesn't resemble most ancient weapons in the world, was made around the year 3000 BC and came from eastern Turkey. However, the sword was contained in a cabinet as part of a medieval collection. It was only when a local PhD student and expert in ancient weaponry noticed the sword that it was removed for further analysis to pinpoint its date. The sword could have been a ceremonial object or an offensive weapon that was used in combat. Another hypothesis is that it was part of a burial and was casually retrieved by townsfolk before ending up in a museum. That's pretty wild, just to think that. I'm probably going to zoom in, I guess not. So 5,000 years ago, someone could have theoretically had on those articles of clothing from that other video, that crown, and they could have been, living all kinds of expeditions, adventures, crazy life. Who knows if that sword actually came from Turkey? I think they know it came from Turkey just because of its design and the way it looks. But it could have been retrieved from some other distant land and brought back home. Has no visible inscriptions, embellishments, or distinctive features. The sword was being kept inside the Mekhitarist monastery on St. Lazarus Island in the Venetian lagoon. There's some pretty cool looking stories here. Pictured for the first time in 2,600 years. Rome unveils what? We'll have to find out. Ancient humans, vegetarians? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Some things never changed. Medieval book. Fossilized. Ancient armadillos. I might have to make that another video of like giant armadillos rolling around. Vittoria Dall'Armellina at Università Ca' Foscari in Venice saw the sword in a small cabinet surrounded by medieval items at the Mekhitarist monastery on the St. Lazarus Island in the Venetian lagoon. Mekhitarist Monastery, which is the headquarters of the Armenian Catholic Mekhitarist congregation, includes museums, a church, residential quarters, a library, museums. Like I think we just saw that it includes museums. I'm reading it again. Museums. Picture... I don't want to tweet. Picture gallery, printing plant, and research facilities. The weapon caught the eye of Dall'Armellina, whose master's degree and PhD included a study on the origin and evolution of swords in the ancient Near East. You know, that's a pretty cool topic for study. And good for her for being able to find a job at that. I mean, it sounds really interesting and fascinating, but people are probably not knocking on her door begging her for, to come and work. She thought the weapon she had spotted didn't look like a medieval artifact, but a much older sword, similar to those she had already encountered in her studies. Maybe that's why she got the job, is because she was one of the few people that was able to actually say, hey, you know what? I think this might be older than 1,000 years old. Good for her. It looks similar to those found in the royal palace of Arslantepe in modern-day eastern Turkey, which would put its date to 5,000 years ago and make it one of the oldest swords in the world. Yeah, that's crazy. I think it was that video where that English professor, he's playing one of the world's oldest board games with that other guy, I forget his name. And I think that board game was from around 5,000 years ago in somewhere in the Middle East. I can't remember if it was like Mesopotamia or what. I'm not sure. And I'm sorry if I got my Mesopotamia date wrong, if it was way older than 5,000 years ago. But contrary to some Arslan-Tepe specimens, the sword is not decorated and has no visible inscriptions, embellishments, or distinctive features. Strong resemblance to the twin swords of Arslan-Tepe, as well as information about its metallic composition, allowed experts to determine that the sword dates back to around the end of the 4th and the beginning of the 3rd century BC. Arslan-Tepe swords are considered the oldest type of sword in the world. The St. Lazarus Island sword turned out to be made of arsenical bronze, an alloy frequently used before the widespread diffusion of bronze. That's cool. Arsenical bronze uses copper and arsenic, as opposed to copper and tin or other constituent metals to make bronze. This type of sword was found in a relatively small region in eastern Anatolia, between the high course of the Euphrates and the southern shore of the Black Sea. Further analysis of trace elements could further pinpoint the exact source of the metal. Due to less than optimal conditions, it has not been possible to detect any traces of usage, but it's believed the sword traveled from Trebizond in Turkey to Venice in the second half of the 19th century. Yeah, so this guy here, Father Gevon Alishan, he was gifted the sword right before his death. But think about that though. So 5,000 years ago, this sword was actually in use. And sometimes I just find it really fascinating that's why I did the other video about the world's oldest articles of clothing. I just think it's really cool that we still have some of these remnants of our past still alive. And like, if you ever go to a museum or like you see things, I don't know, at least to me, it just makes it more of a real event. I mean, obviously it's real, but seeing something in person just kind of, I don't know, it takes your imagination to like another level. And I can see the appeal of people doing research in like swords and becoming an archaeologist. Like if you're actually out digging up various artifacts that are, maybe 10,000 years old, and you're holding in your hands something that somebody else used at a point in time, I think it kind of connects you to that person. It makes you kind of just realize that, that person was a human being with their own thoughts, ambitions, dreams. And even though their society was probably, I'm sure it was vastly different than our society today, we wouldn't really be where we are today if it wasn't for those who came before us. That's an obvious statement, I think, but I just find it fascinating that, even today we're still interested about our past. And if you might have heard my dog, he's kind of begging to go out. Someone to take him out. Someone to cut this short. But so that's what like the little sad barks are. If you hear those, he's doing okay. He's just crying to go outside for the moment, and I think it stopped raining, so we should be good on that. But yeah, like think about it. 5,000 years ago, that sword was. Who knows what that was used for? It could have been used for combat. It could have been used for a ceremony. It could have been used to defend someone's home. I just think that's really interesting. And I always thought that would be kind of a cool hobby too, to collect antique swords and knives and maybe even maps. I think map collecting could be pretty cool. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll get my entire back wall there covered with ancient maps. Okay, so let's see here. And this is due to an envelope containing a worn-out slip of paper that came with the sword. The note on the paper, written in Armenian, talks about a donation to Father Gevon Alishan, a famous poet and writer who died in Venice in 1901. Gevon Alishan, who was a friend of English art critic John Ruskin, was born in Constantinople, now Istanbul, and traveled to Venice before his death. Further studies are being done on the weapon, the history of which is still shrouded with mystery. And this article is about a year and a half old, so I don't know if there's any specific updates on it. I don't think there is. I think they're still thinking it's one of the world's oldest swords. And this just gives some different background information about the region. I don't think they got any more. I think that was the end of the article. So yeah, so what do you think? Do you find ancient artifacts and different weapons and stuff from years gone by to be an interesting topic? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for checking out this video. I'm Cadwin. You can find me on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. And I just try to cover cool topics that I find interesting. Like I said before, I'm still working on a little movie review that I'm going to be putting out and some other random stuff. And I try to get stuff out when I'm feeling like it. Like I spend all day studying software engineering, so I get a little burnout towards the end. But if I feel like it, I'll try to put out some cool stuff and try to provide some interesting news and interesting topics of discussion rather than the same old stuff you see every day that's always blaring out the airwaves. Anyway, thanks for checking this video out. And until next time, take care.